Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, a controversial bill that would require a woman to have an ultrasound treatment before she could obtain an abortion hits a snag in the State House of Representatives. We'll talk about that, plus what's going on with bonus gate trials. And then following a discussion with Robert Swift on those subjects, guess what? We're going to do a little wellness, what's new, where's all wellness going, all of that and more when Pennsylvania Newsmakers returns.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me, as often is the case, is one of the state's leading reporters, Robert Swift. He's with Times-Shamrock newspapers. Robert has been on the program many times, and wow, Robert, you've covered a lot of controversial subjects in your years up here, but this whole business with this ultrasound treatment, a requirement that a woman who wants to have an abortion would have to go through before she could obtain an abortion, has hit a snag. But before we do that, man, when you get into the details of this, there's some really controversial aspects to this, isn't there?
Yeah, the whole part of the issue with this bill is it would require women to have this ultrasound 24 hours before having an abortion. There's language in there that they would position the ultrasound machine so she could see it, but would not be. They couldn't force her to look at it. So you got all this language, plus you got this for the kind of detail that they want from the machines. You get into this issue of an ultrasound that would be internally invasive to the woman.
So we're not, we're going to be very careful on this show about how we put it, but it would be the ultrasound would take place internally.
Yes.
And therefore, some women would view this as very invasive.
By a state directive,
By state, the state says you have to do this.
Yeah.
Now, they originally had, this is a bill that started in the House, it's still there, 103 people originally signed up. Whoa. That's
changing by the day as people are withdrawing their names as co-sponsors, something you can do. And partly is that this bill there's been a bill moving through Virginia, where they got a lot of national attention, and where the governor of that state, Bob McConnell, wanted changes involving this issue to the point the bill now says an external ultrasound. That's one on the abdominal from. So that has raised the national awareness of this right when this, Pennsylvania bill was headed for a floor vote in the House. Right. And now the House Republican leader is saying they're going to, the vote's off, indefinitely. Yeah,
I mean, I think that, when I first read it, originally it didn't spell out what the ultrasound would be like. And then when you find out how invasive it is, all of a sudden, that became a huge issue. And as you point out, 103 people now, literally, they could pass it with 103 people voting, right?
That's right. And in the past, these kind of bills in the House have had like 150 votes in favor of them over the years, going back 20, 30 years.
Talking about abortion restriction.
Yes, bills have had that kind of majority in the House.
Yeah. So my guess is that in an election year, plus the nature of this, that, it's gotten a lot of folks disturbed about it. This doesn't. I was a little surprised when it even came up in an election year, because it is. We're not getting into the. We're neutral in all this. We're just observing it. But you can't argue that it's not controversial, can you?
Right, and you got the nature of the. A Northwest Pennsylvania lawmaker, Kathy Rapp, sponsored it. You got the nature of the House Republican Caucus, which it has a lot more, many members from the so-called T.
Yeah, and conservative.
Socially conservative. Then you have this wing there of them in the southeast suburban areas, and it's
more liberal on the cultural issues.
and there's a group that wants to push the small government economic side, but there is this push on these, and it's happening across the country in Republican legislatures.
So bottom line here, and then we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about you're going to bring us up to date on bonus gate. Bottom line here, likely stalled now for the rest of the year anyway.
At least,
and I shouldn't ask you to do this.
Definitely through the primary, let's put it that way. But yeah, I think it was come up again at some point. But I mean, definitely the primary.
And maybe the less invasive one, right?
And once again, we'll also have to see if the Health Secretary Villa said they're looking at the bill.
Right.
They were asked if you're going to make a recommendation soon. Well, the governor may weigh in too. Who knows? Like he did in Virginia, the governor.
Yeah, that's right. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he just won't say anything. All right. Hey, the bonus gate. 24 of the 25 people have now in some way had their cases adjudicated, but we got a big case going on out in Pittsburgh that's not part of bonus gate. It wouldn't be Pennsylvania if we didn't have all these government officials being prosecuted. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking with Robert Swift from Times-Shamrock newspapers about a bunch of breaking developments in the state, actually in the state capitol and elsewhere. And we're going to talk about all of these investigations for basically public corruption. Let's move away from bonus gate and go out to Pittsburgh, where a state senator, sitting state senator named Jane Orey, is being prosecuted for allegedly using staff to help her sister get elected to the state Supreme Court in 2009. Do I have that right so far?
Right. And this is an
Go ahead.
Allegheny County case, not a state case.
Allegheny County, right.
Bought by the DA there, and it's up now for what's a retrial. They sent it in a mistrial a year ago. And Senator Orey had been the third-ranking Republican in the Senate until the charges came. And the case is also involving some question of some, whether some documents were altered in any way.
That was in the first trial where the argument was that documents the defense handed in had been altered in some way, and so that's what caused a mistrial.
That's right.
And now we're back to a retrial. Now we have that charge as well as the original one,
and her sister is also being tried, will be tried in a separate case.
Janine, is that her name?
Yes, Janine. She had been an aide to Justice Joan Orey Melvin, who's on the court. The justice has not been charged in this. But this is a very high-profile, case in Pittsburgh. Of course, Senator Orey did win the last re-election in the last round.
Okay. Now let's come back to Harrisburg, where the Attorney General is prosecuting the former #2 guy in the House, former Representative Mike Vion, who was convicted earlier and is now serving time. We now have a second round involving him with a different charge, which I'll let you explain. And then there's one more to go. All 24 of 25 have been dealt with in some way. One more to go, and that would be former Representative Steve Stetler from York. Yes. So what's going on? Now, we may get an answer here. A trial may be over and all of that before this airs this weekend. But bring us up to date on that.
It's ironic, Mike Vion was convicted 2 years ago, literally, on the bonus gate charges of using the state employees. This one involves, setting up a nonprofit economic development corporation and, steering state money through that, but not being used for what it was purported to be.
Right.
So this is,
Now, so the argument would be that this nonprofit that former Representative Vion from Beaver County used this Beaver County Growth Initiative.
BIG,
Initiative for Growth. And he took the money, this is the allegation, that he took money from it and put it into his own pocket, in a sense. Is that it?
Right, or for his political purposes.
Oh, okay, or for his political purposes.
More political purposes,
Okay, and that trial is underway.
That's underway.
And now the final thing on this would be a former House member who was convicted earlier now has just turned himself in and finished my sentence.
Just Representative Brett Feast, Republican. He was just, started his prison term this week.
Right.
He was convicted back in November of part of the Republican use of computer technology for political campaigns.
Right.
And he had been the, at that time, Appropriations Chairman, very powerful post. Then he'd been counsel to the caucus.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know,
Yeah.
now he's in prison.
All right, hey, great update. You come back, you always, hey, we're going to go to wellness. I think we need some wellness. Our friends from Highmark are here. We're going to talk about, well, the state legislature might need some wellness at the rate it's going. Hey, Robert, thanks as always. All right, we'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. As I said before, I don't know if the legislature needs wellness, but we all do. And we have a couple of great guests. Jennifer Grana, she's the Director of Client Strategy with Advancement with Highmark, and Todd Hershbine, he's with Human Resources. He heads Human Resources with Minitab. We'll find out what Minitab does in a moment. I'll give him some free promotional time. All right, Jen, we've talked about wellness before. Explain it in a couple of sentences. What is wellness and why should anyone care about it?
Well, wellness has been around for decades, first of all. But we've seen a surge of more companies getting involved in wellness because, number one, it's the right thing to do, and number two, it can result in healthy, happy, productive employees. Yeah. So wellness is no longer just a health fair or a softball league. Wellness is truly a data-driven strategy to help with things that are driving employers' costs, things that are driving productivity impairment.
Sure.
So wellness can be a whole host of things, from keeping people to manage their conditions correctly or manage their lifestyle.
And for me, I always thought of as, look, if you're we're all patients at one time, right? We're all patients. So if you're into wellness, you can avoid potentially some more serious problems, right?
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
It's companies like Minitab that get that. It's not a short-term solution, but it's keeping those healthy, lower-risk people from migrating into those higher risk, higher cost categories.
So there's two advantages. I mean, there's hopefully a cost saving to the healthcare system in the long haul, but for patients, it's also avoiding, if not preventing, more serious healthcare problems down the line, right?
Absolutely. 80% of conditions are modifiable.
Wow.
Meaning your
80%.
lifestyle can impact your risk of developing a chronic condition.
All right. Todd, first of all, you get 30 promotional seconds. Minitab, you're located, I understand, at State College, right? What do you do?
That is correct. Minitab, we are a statistical software package, and we're a tool for quality improvement. So people use our software to help identify areas where they can increase the quality of their products.
How many people work for you?
We have 337
Wow.
employees.
Now, you're into wellness, too. I mean, I presume you do some of the programs?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. We're going to let's be a little more specific now. Let's sort of give our viewers a couple of examples of what you might do in a wellness program that they can identify with.
Well, we'd start with the data. So the data tells us very clearly what we should be doing.
So what data are you collecting?
We can look at utilization data, claims data, pharmacy data, wellness profile data. So we might tell from a certain population that 15% have never been to the doctor ever. So the risk of them having risk factors or disease would be unknown. We call that hidden risk. Might not have received preventive exams or screenings. We could also tell that perhaps stress is causing a lot of trends in the data.
Now, at your level, would that mean that you would have people that would look at what in my business, we would call trend data? Over time, you might say, well, what is your blood pressure? What is your cholesterol? if you're a guy and you're over 45, are you having a regular PSA? I mean, is that the kind of...
Well, sure. What I think is necessary to understand fitness and wellness in general is a CEO should be able to walk into HR executive's office at any time and say, what does our utilization report look like, and what are our 5 biggest concerns? That's what I do.
When you say utilization, put that in another way.
Utilization basically tells me from the reports that Highmark generates what we need to be concerned about. So example, it could be high cholesterol, it could be depression medications, it could be, and a lot of times the surprising thing is the utilization is not what you normally think. People get real excited about, well, it's the cancers, it's the big diseases, heart problems, and it's not. It really, what we find is that where we see utilization would be for the diabetics that have either not been diagnosed yet or borderline.
Or people with high cholesterol that you might say, hey, before you develop a heart problem, right, go ahead.
Correct. We have 27, 28-year-olds with high cholesterol. They did not know it until we did a pre-screening where Highmark came in and we did a Know Your Numbers. When they got that, they were flabbergasted because they're like, I'm 27 years old, I exercise every day. Yes, but you have high cholesterol.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk sort of about the long-term, the short-term, long-term goals, and we'll see how that fits in with what the employers are doing. All right, this is a wonderful update. We'll be back with it following...
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're doing a wonderful program here. If you joined us, stay with us. We're talking about wellness and how important it is. Todd, you brought up a good point that initially if you sign up, let's say, for a program like Highmark runs, you may pay a little more because you're getting the service, but finish the thought.
Yes, what I said is, when we started our fitness wellness program, it was actually 10 years ago. In our second year where we had these programs up and running, we received a 38% increase.
So you were in sticker shock for the moment.
Absolutely. And most CEOs would say, I'm investing all this money in wellness programs, I'm treating people right, and I still get 38%? Yeah. This is highway robbery, stop the programs, we're not doing it anymore, there's no savings in this. And this is what a lot of CEOs do because they want an instant return.
Sure.
But what we did is said, no, this is the right thing to do. We're going to take care of our people. It'll pay off. We just got to stay with it. And in the past 5 years, now this is 8 years after that 38% shock, the last 5 years, our renewals, our medical renewals, have been less than half the national and state trend.
So the state trend for health insurance increase would be about 18%?
That was correct. Last year.
And you were what?
5% last year. And
so over the long haul, A, you're doing the right thing. B, you're helping your employees, and B, or C, I'm up to C now, you're saving money, right, in the long run.
The year before that, it was 0%.
Oh, wow.
So if you think about compounding and how compounding interest affects the company's bottom line, and I always say, if you're going into fitness and wellness, you go into it because of the business case.
Now, Jen, let's talk a little bit about the sort of short-term, long-term. You can. Are there differences? I mean, are there short-term goals versus long-term goals?
Sure, absolutely. The short-term goals are really to get the awareness out there and get people to participate. So really, if you want to move the needle or bend the trend like Todd was talking about, you really need to get at least 50% or more of your population doing something.
Right.
And you have to make it readily available and accessible. Not everyone wants to go to a gym. Not everyone wants to talk to a coach. So whether you have things online, on the phone, or on site will appeal to the vast majority. Getting people to participate and then getting people to change their behavior and sustain that over time. That's what helps to bend the trend.
And you know what? That's when some of the folks that are in physical therapy, tell me that companies will go in and work with their employees. They may be doing a job that's very repetitious, you know, that could lead to, let's say just in this example, you know, hand and wrist problems. So by going and working with them in advance of that, they're actually preventing the problems that would be more, you know, they're helping their employees at the same time it's more, you know, cost effective. Now Todd, you mentioned something about, and I think we talked about this on previous, you know, when we dealt with this subject before, about getting young kids to be more aware of this, that what we're trying to do is create a different environment. And you have a program, or you know?
I do. One of the things with the new legislation that came out was that now we have to carry dependents until they're 26. Now, knowing that we have to carry dependents till 26 makes me realize that if I have a 5-year-old, the potential of that person being on my health care plan is 21 years. So if they become unhealthy at 13, there's a good chance I have 13 years of unhealthy behavior on my utilization. So what we did is we stepped back and said, whenever you look at a portfolio, you have to look at everything.
So look at the whole family.
Look at the whole family. So as a result, you want to design programs that bring the family in, get them to think about how are they eating, how are they, you know, teenagers have stress, believe it or not. Highmark has plans that address that. There's intervention programs that are free to the contract holders. Utilize, work together, and that I think is the other key. We work very closely with Highmark. We consider ourselves partners, not adversaries, and that's very different than most companies.
Now let's look at expansion of this program. What's the sort of expansion of wellness as you see it in the workforce? You see it? Is your work expanding, or more companies buying into it? I mean, what's the growth been like in it?
The growth has been exponential over the last 5 to 10 years, with more and more companies expanding not just their programs for their employees, but reaching out to the covered dependents. And also the shift has been not just on healthcare costs, but really about employee productivity and about employee morale. So that really helps bring about the whole picture.
So your point would be, if you got healthier employees and they're happier about doing their job, they're going to be more productive. So that adds another. Do you find that in your workforce?
Yes, I actually think the reason you do a health and wellness program is to affect the bottom line, the total bottom line, not just the healthcare bottom line. Because if people, and I was telling this story earlier, I said, I had an employee come into me and say, I wasn't really feeling well this morning, but I realized I have my workout at 11 o'clock, and I didn't want to miss my workout. So I said, well, okay, I guess, you know, we'll take that. You know, but they're engaged.
Do you have actually facilities there where you do workout?
We do. We have invested heavily. We have a indoor pool. We have
a pool?
Yes,
no,
a yoga
you would have
studio.
all kinds of people applying for your 3. Now, do you see that? I mean, do more companies doing what they can?
Well, that is, you know, a crucial component of a successful wellness program is the culture. And Minitab, you know, they're the role model for that. It's one thing to say you have a wellness program, but if you know, want to do a 10,000-step challenge program, but you don't allow people to leave their desk to get out and walk, what good is it? So having a supportive culture. People spend most of their day at work. If you sell unhealthy food in the cafeteria or vending machines, that's sort of defeating your effort. So Minitab does that, whether it's a fitness center or walking trails. They also have very visible leadership support, which is critical.
Well, look, thanks. This has been a wonderful update. I'm sure our viewers appreciate it. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and stay well.